Hey everybody, this is Danny Perez with Hillsborough Community College and Figure It Out Baseball. Today I'm going to talk to you guys about the two different types of goal orientations that you can have as an athlete. And those are task orientation and ego orientation. A task-oriented athlete is one that's usually very focused on improving themselves each and every day, whether that be learning a new skill or perfecting a skill in their sport. They are focused on bettering their previous performance. On the other hand, an ego-oriented athlete is focused only on beating their opponent, doing enough to make sure that they come out on top. Task versus ego orientation aligns closely with another pair of mindsets in the sports psychology world, and that is process versus outcome. If you've ever heard a coach tell you to focus on the process instead of the outcome, or focus on the journey, not the destination, that coach is trying to get you to become more task-oriented. It is important to say that there are pros and cons to both task and ego orientation, and elite level athletes are extremely high in both. Now that being said, task-oriented athletes tend to enjoy their sport more. They tend to enjoy the process of improving and training to get better at their sport. Task-oriented athletes are more likely to be intrinsically motivated. And what I mean by that is that their motivation comes from within themselves. They don't rely on the outcome or any type of reward in order to push themselves harder. So being task-oriented is actually very helpful in the training phase, in your off season, in practice, when you don't necessarily always have somebody else to compete against. You are going to be more motivated to train hard and to practice and to perfect your skills with a task orientation. Athletes with an ego orientation are more likely to be extrinsically motivated, meaning that their motivation relies on the outcome of their competition, or it relies on some type of reward at the end. Their motivation is less likely to come from within themselves, so it's harder for them to motivate themselves without those rewards or outcomes. They're also a little bit less likely to enjoy their sport if they don't get the outcome that they wanted. On top of that, ego-oriented athletes are more likely to rely on their natural talent as opposed to really enjoying perfecting their craft. My goal here is not to bash ego orientation by any means. In fact, I think ego orientation is extremely important. We want to build competitive players. We want players who love to win and hate to lose. I know I hate to lose and I love to win. Losing is not fun. We always want to beat the guy across from us. The only time when ego orientation is a problem is when you don't have task orientation to go along with it. Ego orientation arguably is more important in the competition phase than task orientation is. And just like I talked about earlier, in the training phase, task orientation is arguably more important to have. Now, in a perfect world, we have high levels of both orientations in both the training phase and the competition phase. Like I said, elite athletes have high levels of both. We even try to incorporate as much competition as possible in our practices to make that ego-oriented athlete motivated in the training phase. Your goal orientation not only affects how you train and how you go about competing, but it also affects how you reflect on wins and losses. An ego-oriented athlete may look at a win or a loss all as equal. All losses are the same, all wins are the same. And at the end of the day, a win is a win and a loss is a loss. And our goal is always to win every baseball game that we go out and play. But if you only have ego orientation when it comes to reflecting on a game, you have the possibility of ignoring things that you did well in a loss and ignoring things that you didn't do well in a win. For example, let's say you get a one-run win against a team that isn't quite on the same level as you are from a talent standpoint. And you got the win, but you had way too many strikeouts offensively, too many walks from the pitching side, too many base running errors, too many defensive errors, whatever it may be. You don't want to ignore those things. Regardless, yes, even though you did get a win, you cannot ignore the things that you didn't do well and the things that you need to work on going forward. On the flip side, let's say you lose a really close game, and obviously if you lose a game, there's things that you could have done better, without a doubt. But it's important to still acknowledge, the clutch base hits, the things that you did well pitching. It's still important to acknowledge all those things even in a loss. At the end of the day, you still want to work on those things that you didn't do well enough in order to get that win next time. But it's important to know that there are things that you could do well and still come out with a loss, and there's things that you can do not well and still come out with a win. And you have to acknowledge both of those things regardless of the scoreboard. With that being said, it's important to maintain some level of ego orientation. That way we never become satisfied with losing. Hopefully this information helps you guys find a balance between task and ego orientation when it comes to training, competing, and reflecting on your past performances. Thank you guys for watching. Again, this is Danny Perez with Hillsborough Community College and Figure It Out Baseball. Please make sure you check out my next mental skill video on controlling the controllables.